to click record, so I have just done that now, and hopefully all of that now works as well. I will very quickly turn on the hi to everyone, and I will after this very quickly also turn it off again, so you don't have to watch my ugly mug, because we're going to get some basics going. So the public chat is enabled, the Q&A is enabled. If there are any things during the webinar, please do feel free to raise your hand or to ask a question. I will do my best to get through everything as soon as I can. So let's get the screen sharing going so you can see what I will be doing. If I'm correct, you can see the Quriobot control room and my test organization right now. And what we are going to do today is we're going to walk through the basics of the control room, and I'm going to build a Quriobot that has custom notifications to it every time somebody has a conversation with that bot. We saw that that was a question that was coming forward on the Facebook group a couple times. So that is what we will be building today. And of course, more videos and webinars will follow. That being said, let's get right to it. Just as the first step of the basics, on the left you have your menu of the control room. I'm not going into the details of that one just now, but what is good to keep in mind is that there are settings that you can use in your bot, which can be configured in your organization settings. So an example of that is that if you would like to customize your landing page URL, that you can create those settings here, and that the from email address, so the email address that people see when they receive an email from your Quriobot, can also be selected here. Let me quickly see what there is. A few questions coming in. Yeah, the admin is only me. Sorry guys, you're not the admin of the QB control room. Jay, I see you have a black screen. That's unfortunate to hear, but I think for the rest everything works. But don't worry, this is recorded, so I will share it with you as soon as it's available and done. Right, so as said, the from address can be configured in the organization as well. I'm not going to do that right now, but please have a look at that one yourself, so that the emails that people receive from your Quriobot can even be further customized. Now, on to the actual building of the bot. As you can see in your dashboard, or in my dashboard, there are some things already available here, just like in yours, but I'm clicking on new to create a bot from scratch. There are templates available. We will also be extending these in the foreseeable future, but I'm going to start off with the one from scratch. So let's call this one the webinar of 11/10/2018, and we will proceed. Now, please bear in mind, I'm doing this also in the same control room as you. I hope that therefore my internet connection will stay alive. So if any hiccups occur, but let's not hope so, then I apologize on beforehand. Now, before going into the building of the bot, just a quick walkthrough on the different tabs that are available. Within the edit section, you can build your bot. We see a lot of people that make use of the templates, but that actually are not adding a lot of steps themselves. Please know that this menu unfolds and that there are all kinds of step types available. The usual suspects like multiple choice and short text and rating questions you will see on the top. But for example, the location question we use quite a lot since it is one that is connected to Google Maps, and therefore helps you and your users to easily get location data. You will see, for example, also calendar step types where you can choose from a range. So a to and from date, or from and to date, as well as a date picker. You can choose a slider form. Multiple images allow people to select one or more images from a list. Buttons, as well as foldouts. The foldout is definitely an interesting one to use in case you want to, for example, show YouTube videos, or if you have other content to embed. And the last one that I think deserves a little highlight is the external chat step type, which enables your users to create some sort of a breakout to one of the other social channels out there, like, for example, Facebook Messenger or Slack. Within each and every step type, and it's a crucial one, but also an important one to realize, is that every step always consists out of 3 additional steps, being the bot messages, what the Quriobot is going to start off with, the answer possibilities as a step 2, and in this case, it's a yes-no question, so the answer possibilities are yes and no. And the last one, the actual bot responses. So the way this question is set up, for everybody who didn't play around with the control room just yet, the bot asks, ready to start. It provides the answer possibilities of yes and no. And in case somebody answers yes, you can define here to which next step the bot will go, and it says nice. Now, in this case, the next step is still empty, because I haven't built any just yet. So when I'm building a bot myself, for example, I always first add all the different step types that I want to put in, and after that, I'm applying the jump between them. These are the basics for the edit section. Within the design, I think this one speaks for itself. You can design your bot. This is the name, as you already saw it. You can add multiple languages to it. If you do this, you will see that in the edit section, new fields pop up for the applicable language. The way it then works is that the Quriobot recognizes the browser language of the user. So if somebody has their browser language in English, it will show the English language. And if I've also defined a Dutch version, for example, and I have my Chrome in Dutch, then I will see the Dutch text. Here you can also show the terms and conditions settings in the footer of your bot, and you configure how the soft start setting works. We see a lot of people that leave this one on, but it's definitely a good one to play around with. The soft start is what you see happening here. So in this case, with the helper bot in the control room, the soft start is configured in such a way that it shows when I hover over, but it doesn't start automatically. These are items that you can configure in this section of the platform. See a question coming in whether you can change the terms and conditions icon. The answer to that is no. That is a set thing within the platform. Aside from the icons, you can, of course, add your avatars. For everybody who doesn't understand the differences that are happening here, this is the avatar, and the one that is on the bottom right is a sticky avatar that kind of sticks to your website. You have the different colors of all the variables of the conversation, which you can set as you like, and we've recently added the background color of the messages. I'm going to speed up a bit since I see that almost 10 minutes have passed and I haven't actually built anything. So the embed code is the place where you can find the code needed to embed a Quriobot on your website. And you also find the embed snippet. If you're wondering what that is, please do check the Facebook group, because there are some videos available on that, since it could be a very handy tool to show Quriobot to your clients. The landing page, the last of the big tabs, so to speak. This is the page that is being built with every bot that you are building, and which you can use as a place to guide traffic to, for example, via an email campaign, if you're looking to collect feedback, for example. So here you will, for example, see that the URL contains a lot of default info. It's quriobot.com/qb and then a whole bunch of characters. these are the things you can define within your organization settings. So that is good to know. The page title you can configure, as well as these kind of messages. All the way in the bottom, aside from also changing the color, you can add different backgrounds to your landing page. So what is in there by default is what is set, but if you add several images here, then you can make the image change based on the conversation of your bot. I will show you that in a second. On the advanced tab, you have some further possibilities to configure the design of your bot, as well as the startup behavior. Just a few interesting things, I think, to add to this. Of course, here you can change the visibility of the Quriobot branding, but also the offset settings is something to keep in mind. So if a Quriobot is running and it fills up, let's say, the right side of your screen, it can happen, like in this case, that there are buttons on the top right, and with the offset settings, you can let the conversation end, for example, here, so that these buttons are always available. Within the behavior, there are also some nitty things. For example, the rule to let QB start again after the conversation has taken place, but also the restore state is a very nice one to have, because what that does is that Quriobot continues the conversation on different screens that the user opens in that session of that website, of course. So that is a good one to keep in mind. And the last part is that you can also create the timings and auto starts in this section. The notifications tab kind of speaks for itself, I think. The different forwards, the different emails that Quriobot sends after conversations have taken place. And these can be digests, so every conversation that has taken place of that day, of that week, of that month, but also especially handy in case it's on sales, that Quriobot sends a notification to somebody after a conversation has taken place. The last one, or almost the last one we're going to talk about right now are the connections. And this is the section where you can connect Quriobot to some other tools that are out there, and in which you can configure how to let Quriobot send emails. Now, let's get into the building of the bot. I hope that all the connections and such are still good. Yeah, sorry, Jay. I see that you're the only one who's facing some issues. But as said, we'll make sure to record it and share the presentation afterwards. All right, let's get going. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build a bot with the notifications that are not just the default ones that are part of the control room, but with an email template that I've designed in a different tool. So let's get going. In the start from scratch, there is only a yes/no question. So the first question that I'm going to ask after this is somebody's email address. So let's get going here. What is your email address? And I've added that simply by putting it here. The answer possibilities of the email questions are quite simple. So you can add a type suggestion here, for example, saying me@quriobot.com or any other URL that is in there, and you from there on out can start defining your bot responses. Now, although the email question is kind of a standard one in that regard, you ask what somebody's email address is, and people answer to that. There are, of course, different possibilities. Somebody might try and skip the question by just putting in nothing and hitting enter. But somebody might also make a mistake by, for example, forgetting the @ sign or the .com sign. And this is one of the reasons why you should choose an email question, because it checks whether the setup of the item that is filled in is actually an email address. So in this case, if somebody fills in their email address, then the Quriobot is going to say thank you, and we're going to add a little smiley there. But in case the input has become invalid, So let's say I've forgotten the @ sign, then Quriobot says that seems incorrect. Can you please try again? In case of a missing response, so in case somebody wants to continue but does not fill out anything, the bot is going to answer, I need your input to proceed. Now, and with that, we basically have that step type completely ready to go. As said, there is now no jump selected just yet. I will get to that at the very end. But what is always good to know is if there is no next step defined in your previous step, then it by default just simply goes to the next one. Let me see whether there are some questions coming in. One of the questions that I just saw is that whether the system validates the email address. That is not possible. It is not that we are validating whether an email address actually exists, but we do check whether the input has the shape of an email address. Let's put it like that. Now, aside from the email address, we also want to have the person's name. So for that, we're going to add a short text. In case you're wondering what, for example, the difference is between a short text step type and a long text step type, is that if you get a short text step type and you hit enter, that you then immediately proceed to the next question, and with a long step type, you go to the next line. So in this step type, we're going to let the Quriobot ask, what is your name? Again, here you can have some type suggestions available, for example, saying, please type your name here. And there are several ways in which, again, the QB can respond. So let's add a quick invalid one saying that is not correct. Add a missing response saying, I need your input to proceed. And we, of course, also want to have a response available in case somebody does enter a first name. Now, for this, and I've seen that one pop up quite a few times as well, it might actually make the conversation a bit more human if you let QB repeat that person's name, or, for example, let QB give that person a compliment. In this case, we're going to make it a little different like that. And for example, we are going to say, that is a great name. I also know somebody who is called, and then we, of course, want to have that input used. And that you can do by using this button here and adding the step response. So in this case, we want to have the input on question 3. So you just click this button and then you add it like that, add and save this step type as well. So now the bot has 3 steps already in there: a welcoming message, the question, what is somebody's email address, and what is somebody's name. Now, of course, if you're going to use this for an actual sales bot, it's a bit too quickly and might be a bit intrusive, but please bear in mind, it's just for the webinar to show you how to get the customized emails going. The last part we're going to do is add a goodbye button to this, and there are several ways of setting this up. One is that in the logic jump section, so where you define the next step, that you create, that you select the exit. This means that the bot, after somebody has entered their name, simply says, that is a great name. I also know somebody who's called, and then that input, and then just disappears. With that, the user does not automatically have to click anything or sign off in that regard, but just for the idea, we're going to do that now as well. So I'm going to add an exit button to it. This exit button is called see you soon. So that is what the bot then says, and then the person can click the goodbye button, and I'm not going to define any new response from the bot after that. It's just where the conversation ends, basically. Yeah, sorry, Jay. Sorry to see you leave. I'll make sure to put the replay online as soon as possible. But you did give it a try for around 20 seconds. Hope that for the rest everything is working properly. So the conversation, the brief conversation of these 4 step types is there. But we haven't applied any jumps just yet. Now, with a conversation of 4 steps, it's also not really necessary, but there are some different pathways possible. So, after the welcoming question in which the bot says, "Hi, I'm Quriobot, ready to start," there are 2 answer possibilities. And in case somebody clicks yes, the bot jumps to the question, "What is your email address?" and says nice. And in case of somebody answering no, then the bot is going to exit and is, for example, going to say, "No problem, I quickly leave you alone." And then it just exits. What is your email address? Kind of spoke for itself. By default, it now goes already to question 3, but just for the sake of it, and also if you later on add questions in between, then it remembers these set steps. It might be good to already just have it in. And the same goes for when you ask the person's name. This one can go to the final step, which reads, "See you soon." Now, with this, we have the basic conversation with only 4 steps. We have it going. I'm quickly going into the design tab because I don't want to have the soft start going. I would rather just have the bot start immediately when we're on the page. So here we can quickly see whether it is set like that. On the advanced is by default, it's on. So if we are now going to preview our little bot, then it will start automatically. There we go. I might have tuned that timer down a little bit, but it did start automatically. So welcome and hi, I'm Quriobot, ready to start, yes and no. Now in case I click yes, it says nice, and I proceed to the question, "What is your email address?" Now here you will find now, don't type anything, but I click enter, then it will define it as a missing response. And here you will see this error message that I just put in. QB needs the email to proceed. So let's say I'm going to add hello@Quriobot, but I don't add the .com. Then you also see that there's a warning message, and also this color you can change within the design tab, because I forgot the .com to it. And if I enter that as well, then you see that it proceeds and that it accepts. Here is the thank you and the smiley, and we proceed with that to the question, "What is your name?" I'm Guy or Guy, doesn't matter. And here you have the bot responding with, "That is a great name. I also know somebody who's called Guy." After that, it goes to the final step, saying, "See you soon," and then I can click goodbye, and then I've finished the bot. I'm going to leave this one now because we basically have the conversation set and done. We might be looking at some avatar changes, or for example, some colors that immediately do when the colors here are changed. Good to keep in mind is that when I, for example, have an attention color setting, so the warning messages as you just got them, I always make sure that they draw all attention possible. And for example, the redo color is people with Quriobot have the possibility to go back into the conversation and change their answer. I always make kind of visible so that it's clear for people that they can actually do this. So let me quickly save that one and then see whether there are some questions available. Is it possible to show, if available online, that the system, yeah, so yes, there are also other ways in which you can create variables in your bot, but we're going to save that one for the non-basics webinar, and the email question takes up all types of domains. Right, so we have the bot. We've made a few differences in the design. We are going to make a few minor changes on the landing page. So the URL I'm not going to change for now because I will just leave my organization settings as it is. But I am going to change my page title. That's this thing here where it reads title. So I'm just going to change this to webinar of today. I'm also going to change a few items on the landing page. So this is the landing page title. You immediately see a change here on your preview. This is the subtitle, and we're going to give this a little bit of a different color. The message text is leave in black. And then you, of course, also have the button in case that is useful for you to change as well. Click here to start QB. And that one we're going to leave in blue. And I'm also not going to change the background image for now, but I did promise you to show you how you can change it. So let's say you have a bot that concerns, for example, feedback on specific products, and you allow somebody to select the applicable product via a multiple choice question. Then here on the right, you're able to identify some changes in either the messages or the bot responses. So by default, this is a text, but you could change the background based on this input. So if somebody has, for example, here given an answer that he or she wants to review product A, and the bot then says thank you, then here is a place where you can say, all right, make the image background switch, or make, for example, the avatar switch to a customer service icon that belongs to that product. Next to these kind of changes, you can add images aside from the text. You can add videos to it. You can even add JavaScript and HTML codes, or add links to it. Right, so we have walked our way through the first 4 tabs, and we're now on to the advanced section, because we now have our bot ready. We, for example, are ready to go and put it on a website, but we, of course, have a bot that is collecting data and that we want to send somewhere, that we want to use. So in this case, it is a name and an email address, and that we want to send to, for example, the person that had the conversation with Quriobot, and we also want to send this email to the applicable sales manager. Now, the email to the sales manager maybe does not have to look that great. It can be just a simple HTML setup, but the email that is sent to the person that just had the conversation with Quriobot needs to look great. And for all the people that have an agency and that are building Quriobots, for their client, this is especially of interest, because you might want to send emails, with your own branding and not the Quriobot branding. So for those, don't use the notifications that are a part of this tab. These are hard-coded default, and you cannot change the layout, but you can do that here. So back to the advanced session, where we are going to create variables. Now, the easiest way of explaining what these variables are is basically that you're going to create cards, items that you're going to make ready to be used in different sections of the platform or in other platforms. So to put it simple, I'm going to create this little card, which contains of input coming from a step type, and it is the input that is coming from the step type. What is your email address? I have to give this variable, this card, a name, because I have to identify it, and I have to use it in a later stage. So in this case, the name of the variable is going to be simply email, because it is the input that comes from an email address. And as said, we also want to have the name of that person. So we are going to name this one name, and that is the input coming from step type number 3. Yeah, thanks indeed, Mike. Everything is being recorded and will be shared as soon as it's done and ready. Right. So we have worked our way through the first 5 tabs. Now we have built our conversation in the Edit tab. We've made everything look good in the Design tab and changed some of the startup rules. We have made a few changes on the landing page, and now in the advanced section we have identified which 2 elements of this conversation are going to be used elsewhere. The notifications that Quriobot sends are now all checked off, since we're not using this. So in the Connections tab, we are going to define, what Quriobot is going to do with the information that is collected. So here I'm going to create a new response action, because what we want to do is we want to let Quriobot send emails. Now, I don't know whether I went too fast, but here in the response action type, I selected email first. Now, I'm going to save that, but I can't, since I have to first define a couple things. So we want Quriobot to send an email, and we want to tell it where that email address or where this email should go. Now, in this case, I want this email address to be sent to a specific email address within my organization. So for that, I'm simply going to add hello@quriobot.com. That is the email address where all of these emails are going to end up. Again, you can make the from email address, so the to address you define here, but the from email address you can define in your organization settings, but you have to have this one set up before. Otherwise, by default, everything's coming from notifications@quriobot.com. The reply to email address you also need to define. This is the email address that is shown in somebody's email client when somebody hits the reply button. So I get an email after my Quriobot conversation, and I hit reply. Then I want to end up somewhere else, which is at the hello email address as well. Here I can CC other people, for example, a manager or your client's email address, even BCC, and also create a subject for this applicable email. So, for example, in this case, Quriobot, a new response came into the webinar Quriobot. Last but not least is the actual email content. So this now has a small default in here, but we are going to just make it very simple, saying this is the email coming from QB, and we want to have some data available in here that is coming from that actual bot. And here you do need to know a little bit of HTML, but if you want to make sure that there are some new lines, you just add new breaks to it. So somebody receives an email now, and the email is going to read, this email is coming from QB. There is an email address available in here, and there is an email address now. For everybody who doesn't know any HTML, these are just breaks. See it simply as an enter. So what this email now reads is, this is the email coming from QB, the name, and this here is the input as it came from the question, what is your name? And this here is the input that came from the question email. What is your email address? Now, as you see, I have added these little characters to it that is necessary so that the Quriobot platform knows which variables to use here. So I'm quickly going to save this one. And I'm going to go back into the advanced section, so it's completely clear what we're doing here, since it's quite important. So here, the input that comes from the step type, what is your email address, is called email. The input from the step type, what is your name, is called name. And in the connections tab, I've identified this as saying name is what is portrayed or displayed here, and email address is what is displayed here. Now with this, we have an empty plain text email set up as a notification after the Quriobot conversation has taken place. Before proceeding, I'll quickly go into the questions that are coming in. Today, I will not be talking about integrations with third parties. We are going to discuss that in a later video or webinar, since it's indeed a bit too heavy for a first one. The roadmap currently does not include a visual editor for email messages, but we do have a platform available for you guys, which you can use for free to design these emails. I will make sure to make that part of the webinar links and information. It's called Hugo. That one you can use to create good-looking emails for everybody who doesn't know any HTML. But we'll get to that one in a little second, and you will see it yourself also. We have this now set up. I'm quickly going to preview it so that I can show you in a little bit also how these plain emails look like. So I'm Quriobot, ready to start. I am, and I'm going to answer both questions. Now, that was wrong, that was too fast. My email address is hello. My name is Guy. And I now say goodbye. Now, this email is being sent to the hello inbox. I do not manage this one now myself, but I will probably get it in a little second, and then I'll show you how it looks. But aside from these empty, these plain text emails, we of course want to send emails that look great. For example, something like this. Yes, this I designed and made prior to the webinar, but we have a tool available with which you can build this yourself in a drag and drop way, very, very easy. So we'll get to that one in a second. I just see that there are again some questions coming in. If you have, and that's actually a very good question. Thanks, Mike. If you are asking for an email address in a Quriobot, it's a good thing to make sure that you have people's permission to do so. That is that little warning that you also saw when I added the email question. But here you find a legal step type, which you can incorporate so that people give permission, and which also provides you with a way to show your terms and conditions always in your Quriobot. Questions on when certain features are delivered, we will handle via email. And for anybody that just tuned in, yes, everything is recorded and will be shared. And the last question is that I'm not from Finland, but I'm from the Netherlands. Now, we have this email address, this email designed, and we want to make sure that this one is used in the connections tab here, aside from the plain text one. So there are a few things that are good to keep in mind for this. This is just a relatively simple HTML email in which you'll again see that I've used these characters to make sure that at this spot that input is used. So if somebody has had the conversation with this Quriobot and finishes it, then that person will receive an email, in this case, where it reads, here is your custom notification, Guy, and then says, hi, Guy. And in the bottom, it, for example, reads, email is sent to you on, let's say, support@quriobot.com. This, however, is already looking great, and here it is still a bit tacky, so to speak. So we are going to define a new response connection because we want to have this one kept alive. So here I'm going to click Add New Response Action. I'm not going to make a form, but I want to send another email address. And here I want to send this good-looking email template to the person that has actually had that conversation with Quriobot. So here I'm not going to put in hello@Quriobot, but here I'm going to again use the input as somebody has given it to the question, what is your email address? So now we have one email that is always sent to hello@Quriobot.com, and here we have an email that is sent to the email address that that person has given. Again, you can define a reply to email address. Let's say that that remains hello@Quriobot.com, and there are no people on CC or BCC. Here you could also include these variables. So the subject of this email might read something along the lines of, hi, and then the person's name. Here is your transcript, the QB conversation, something along these lines. Then as a last part, we have this HTML section available, but we want to make sure that this one, this good looking one, ends up in here. For that, we need to make sure that we have the actual HTML file available. I have it here, and I've just simply saved it as an HTML file from the Hugo system, and I will get to that later. And what I need to do here is open it with, for example, Notepad. So you have this one. You select, that's why everything's all of a sudden blue. You select everything. You go back in here. You paste everything, and you save it. Now with this, you have a friendly bot that answers in a natural way, that even repeats somebody's name, that uses the input that somebody has given in the conversation directly. So there is an immediate email being sent that looks great and that can be fully customized to your look and feel to the person that's had that conversation. And on top of that, internally, also somebody, the person who manages the inbox, hello@Quriobot.com, is notified. So I'm going to walk through this QB quickly again. If you have a sharp eye, you see here that also these items have changed and that the colors have changed. Also here on the top, you see that the page title changed into the webinar of today. Good to know is that you can change the favicon, which is this one up here as well. And with that, also soon change it. There will be a feature there is a feature on the roadmap so that also this one can be changed, but that is currently being built. Just quickly going through some questions. The changelog indeed can be available. I'll take that link with me as soon as I publish this webinar. Sorry. Right. So with this, we have we've edited the bot, we've designed it a little bit. We now need to make sure that we check whether the emails have arrived. But before I'm going into that one, I quickly wanted to show you the items that are in here. It's a bit weird that the webinar example of today now does not show up in my dashboard. Sometimes that happens. There we are. Here you have already some stats available. Now, I quickly wanted to show these for the people that have overlooked it before, because this is your starting dashboard. If you click on the bot itself, you will find the tracking of each of the devices, what completion time and also conversion is. We've had some questions on whether you can copy bots within your organization, and the answer to that is yes, you can. That's you can do by clicking these three little dots. But what I wanted to show is the reports that are available within your account. So if you click on this one, then you have the different devices being available. But if you click on the report button, then there are some more things there for you. The progress over time gives you insights on when people are interacting with your bot. In the results section, you will find the input that is given in each and every bot. Good to always keep track of is the is complete one, because what you've seen is that I've now opened this bot 3 times. 2 times in which I finished it completely by clicking the goodbye button. But if you remember it as well, the first time I didn't click that one. So that one is in that regard false. You know, I didn't complete the chatbot fully. This information or this data you can download. And you can, of course, also delete specific results. For example, if you're using it for, let's say, feedback data. Especially on that latter, the interactive reporting might be interesting, because what this does is this provides you with insights in how many times each question is answered. So in this case, 3 out of 3 have answered yes, and you can click through each and every one of those. There are no multiple choice questions in here, otherwise it would have been an even better example, aside from this one, of course. But it's good to keep in mind. Next to that, especially becomes interesting if you have a little bit more data available, is that you can add filters to these reports. So let's say, you know, there's more data available here, and I only want to see the data of everybody that has clicked no. Then I apply this filter here. Now, of course, it doesn't work. But then if I go to the next question, I will see the answers that people have given that said no in the first question. And the same goes, you know, if you do it in a different way. So if you've got feedback questions in there, for example, or multiple choice questions, then you can use the interactive reports to properly check, you know, which information has been given where, and what input people have supplied throughout the conversations they've had with your bot. The printing of this version, we also got some questions for that. It's something that's currently being worked on, and these are also the reports that you'll soon be able to share. Quickly going back then to the list of questions. I also noticed that there is some kind of beep. Sorry about that. Not really sure what that is, but I hope it's not too annoying, since there is not much I can do, unfortunately, about it. I am quickly going to check on a different screen whether the emails have arrived. And I see them coming in here. The problem, and I guess I did not think that one through very properly is that I am not able to show you that right now, because then I will have to show you my email inbox that is full of other things. So I guess you will soon get that from me. Give me one quick second and let me see whether there is another possibility to do that. Yeah, I have them here, but what I will do is I will make them part of the link as soon as I share the webinar, so you also have the actual proof that the Quriobot sent 2 emails after this conversation, one of them being the plain one from here, and the good-looking one, which was defined as below. We have a few minutes remaining, since this was the topic that I wanted to talk about for today. I'm quickly moving over to a few questions. There is somebody who is asking, Manny is asking what you can do to control the bot behavior. I will show you that is in the advanced section. Here you can decide what the bot does after somebody leaves the page. So if it, for example, needs to restart after closing, you can do that here. And if you don't want it to auto open, you can select that one here in the bottom. The space between the avatar and messages is something you would have to configure in the CSS yourself. Troy asked the question what the channels tab is. That is a good question, and that is part of the admin side of things. So I'm going to keep that one a little secret for future reference. And I will, of course, indeed make sure to send the updates of new webinars that are coming very soon, as well as some more advanced features in this. Good to keep in mind for everyone who did not see this post or heard about this webinar via the Facebook group. Please do become a member, facebook.com/groups/Quriobot. There more videos will be posted and more webinars will be posted. And of course, a lot of QB users are already out there that are helping each other out. And I'd like to thank you for attending today. I hope this was helpful. Tell your friends, tell your family, use the refer and earn button to spread the word about Quriobot. Thanks for your time, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Have a great day, guys, and thanks a lot.